AI is driving a surge in data, but what's getting less attention is the pressure it's putting on data centers. In Singapore, 90% of professionals are already concerned about the environmental impact of how they store that data. To break this down for us, we are joined by Joyce Lim from Seagate Technology and Dr. Sean Shin from NUS Business School. What can companies do to cut the environmental footprint of their data centers?
One of the key fundamental shifts that companies need to consider is that sustainability and cost do not need to be trade-offs. There's an opportunity for us to optimize both. For companies to really adopt this shift, there are three strategic pillars that we recommend companies to consider. First is really on technological innovation. Technological innovation really will be the key driver for sustainable transformation. Advances in computational power, storage area density, and even technologies for cooling could really help data centers reduce their energy consumption and carbon emission. So, for example, Seagate's Mosaic 3 Plus platform effectively increased capacity by 3 times and allowed and staying on the same footprint. At the same time, it reduces embodied carbon by more than 70% and reduce cost by 25%. So second, that they should look at is to really commit to extend the life cycle of their products as well as circularity by refurbishing, reusing, and even maintaining their storage systems, extend the lifespan of their infrastructure, and reduce e-waste. And thirdly, the data centers should really look at how do we get commitment for sustainability across the whole ecosystem. By achieving meaningful emission, they need to collaborate with the entire ecosystem value chain, from vendors, suppliers, and even cloud service providers. That can help to reduce the total carbon emissions for the entire ecosystem. And of course, really prioritize sustainable vendors as a factor in a procurement decision.
So the companies around the world have been trying to approach or solve this problem from all angles. So people often say, well, just switch to renewable energy. But it's not that simple. Solar is the easiest to implement, but it has its limits in terms of space and storage. Well, hydrogen is still early stage. And nuclear, especially small modular reactors or SMRs, it's being talked about in around the world, but it's politically sensitive and much harder to consider in Singapore. So that said, global companies like Google, Amazon, and Microsoft have all made big commitments and have been using a lot of different ways to use 100% renewable energy across different operations. Okay, but beyond just sourcing clean power, they also think about how to optimize their data center operations. So, for example, AI-driven cooling and liquid cooling systems are far more efficient than traditional methods. Okay, so beyond that, I think we can also talk about some carbon offsets in a sector like this, where it's very hard to fully decarbonize. Carbon offsets can be on a way to reduce emissions around the world. Okay, so for example, Microsoft they bought 3.5 million carbon credits. That means they actually invested in a project that reduces carbon emissions. Okay. And that help balance out their emissions from expanding their data center footprint. So their indirect emissions, often called the scope 3, which included things like construction and supply chains, have risen nearly 30% since 2020. So these offsets, of course, they are not the ultimate solution, but they can actually help bridge the gap as we are trying to come up with the better solutions to scale up the data storage with the green energy.
How about on a technical level, Joyce? For data centers, how can they manage high energy consumption while still meeting their sustainability goals?
The very fundamental step that data centers need to consider is what are the workloads that's required, and then choosing the right medium to ensure that they get the performance and the cost optimization. A tiered storage system is a very good example because not all storage require high performance capability. So when we look at it, if your hot data, you can store them on faster, high performance SSDs, whereas your less accessed data can be stored on high capacity hard drives or archival storage that requires a lot less power over time. This tiered storage infrastructure allow you to achieve the performance that you need for all the workloads and use cases and significantly reduce the cost and power consumption for the data center. Another example, we mentioned earlier that with AI adoption, data is increasing at really exponential rates. And we know that in Singapore, data center space is a huge constraint. So, and one example of addressing this requirement is by transiting a 10 terabyte hard drive to a 30 terabyte hard drive, for example. This effectively increased 3 times the capacity without taking up more space. So in the same footprint, you are able to increase capacity by 3 times. Not just that, you can also reduce power consumption by 60%. There's also embodied carbon reduction by more than 70%. And the cost factor, a reduction of 25% per terabyte.
Onto the government this time. What role should government policies play in encouraging environmentally responsible data storage practices?
First is really setting a very clear guidelines, regulation framework. They set standard, they set what is the emission limits, they set policies such that all the data center operators have a bar to meet. That's the first. But I think secondly, it's important for the government to incentivize innovation or incentivize green technology to be purchased. So through grants, through tax incentives, or even funding to enable data centers and even ecosystem partners to invest in green technologies to bring down the carbon emission in the value chain. The third part is really fostering that whole innovation. We spoke about the need for technological innovation to help in sustainability of data center growth. The government can really come in to encourage collaboration between data center operators, technology providers, and even academia to really innovate together and address challenges in this space. I think one example that was shown is in Singapore last year, November, there is a sustainable tropical data center testbed that was being introduced. It's a collaboration between the academia as well as the industry. And interesting in Singapore, where the weather is tropical climate is a challenge for power consumption. How do they innovate and they can really test out different technologies to bring down energy consumption?
Okay, I think governments play a really important role, not just in regulating, but in enabling and guiding the industry in the right direction. So Singapore has already taken some concrete steps. For example, the Green Data Center Roadmap is a good example. So the idea is to allow up to 300 megawatts of a new data center capacity, but only for operators that meet some standards, high standards like energy efficiency, renewable energy use, and using some smart technologies like AI-driven cooling or liquid cooling system. I think governments can actually use both the stick and the carrot. So the stick could be like a carbon tax, so that the dirty energy actually is being taxed some more, so polluters actually have to pay and think twice. But the carrot is just as important. So it can be in the form of grants, subsidies, and support for R&D. So that could mean funding new cooling technologies or helping companies test more efficient systems or investing in carbon capture solutions, etc. So I think there is a huge opportunities also for financing side, so sustainable financing. So people often nowadays talk about blended financing, which is public and private sectors investing together in green infrastructure. So that's especially important for capital-heavy industries like data infrastructure, where upfront costs are high, but long-term sustainability actually pays off.
Thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your insights, Joyce and Dr. Sean.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Once again, those were Joyce Lim, ASEAN Business Lead at Seagate Technology, and Dr. Sean Shin, Senior Lecturer from the Department of Accounting at NUS Business School. For more news, visit sbr.com.sg.